It's kind of a hot button issue. Well, it is for a lot of people.
For sure.
I've kind of avoided talking about it on the podcast just because of some of the extremes that I've seen some people
gets wild.
Go through. We're talking death threats.
Yep.
Whoa, what is going on here? For the people that maybe don't know, crossbow legislation passed in the state of Minnesota. A crossbow can be used for anybody throughout the entirety of the archery season. And so now it's just wide open.
Yep. My stance on it is it's important to me to keep the integrity of our seasons. When you take something that isn't categorized correctly, the fact that they can be held in the ready-to-fire position excludes them from being categorized as archery. I have nothing against crossbows, and I think people think I do. They're great for elderly people. They're great for people with disabilities, shoulder injuries. Use them in the gun season, free, open, and I think we can all agree on that crossbows are more efficient, and you can pull that benefit also through less practice.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I understand the draw to that, absolutely. I mean, that's ultimately why archery season is so long, is because of the primitive aspect of it, right, and the difficulties of it. And I'm talking about archery, not my personal wants and desires and feelings and emotions,
right.
Archery itself.
What worries me is the shortening of the length of our archery season.
Yep.
Even if you and I didn't have a similar stance, I know you and I could have a conversation about it.
100%.
It's not always about agreeing to disagree.
Yep.
And it's not always about trying to make your point.
That's exactly right.
It's about talking about what your stance is,
yep,
and why you have that stance. Have some information to
yep,
back it up.
Yep.
And then you can go, oh, yeah, I didn't really think about
yep,
that. Politics is a big thing that really drives me crazy about the whole situation. And I don't like the smoke and mirrors behind how it goes through, because
totally
it's not
agree.
based on sound science. It's not based on anything other than, in my mind, some cash being put under the table.
I agree.
My biggest concern, and this is why I kind of changed my tune a little bit on it, is because I'm seeing all of this division within the hunting community. Mm-hmm. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, this is creating this big distraction where people aren't really focusing on what's the real problem? What's going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing because we're too busy worrying about whether this guy is shaming us because we like to use a crossbow. People are at each other's throats, and we need to come to some sort of agreement on the fact that our opportunities are declining. And it's not going to matter if you have a crossbow or you have a gun or you have a bow or you have a spear or a golf club.
Yep.
Those opportunities may not exist at all.
Yep, absolutely.
And I feel like that, I mean, I guess that's kind of why I'm talking about it, is we got to figure something out, because that's my biggest fear, is that my daughter won't have these opportunities when she grows up. Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery Range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. So I didn't anticipate the conversation to go in that direction, go that deep, and that's what I love about this. So it's super amazing, and I want to keep going in that direction. But I am going to pivot just a little bit, because this is a topic that might have us rolling for a while too. But so of all of the success that you had this year, you said you used 4 weapons. Were any of those a crossbow?
It's funny you say that. They were not. No.
Interesting.
No.
Interesting.
That's a crazy whole different space. It's funny though, when you did say that, the first thing I thought of was my longbow bear.
Oh.
And but aside from that, no, that's getting to be quite an ordeal, especially here. You know, it's obviously really big here because it's fresh. It was kind of our first year going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And,
so is weed too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to make that pic, or that, I don't know if you saw that photo I made of Cheech and Chong sitting in a blind with a crossbow.
Oh yeah.
because I'm just like interesting that both those things get passed at the same time, and we'll get deeper into that. But and just I guess for the people that maybe don't know, so we had crossbow legislation pass in the state of Minnesota. So now a crossbow can be used for anybody throughout the entirety of the archery season, which is typically from like September 15th until the end of the year, where previously it was for only less able-bodied individuals, youth, and 65 plus, I believe, correct? And so now it's just wide open.
Yeah, I think when I talk about this a lot, and we kind of chatted a little bit earlier about it, is my argument for it is, and again, I don't care what you do, what you brings you joy and fulfillment. I really don't care. But what I do care about is the integrity of things, and especially being archery based. It's kind of where I got my start and all that is. And I think a lot of people, when I talk about it, they misunderstand what I mean by integrity. I think they think integrity as in like you got a cape and you're, it's more associated with a human emotion, and that's not it at all. And my stance on it is, it's important to me to keep the integrity of our seasons. And what I mean by that is, when you take something that isn't categorized correctly, and it's kind of that, like I said it earlier, you give an inch, they take a mile. So where do we draw lines? And we take something that was, and again, I told you this, I don't care, like if crossbows made hunting better and like numbers lower, and I would still have the same stance, in the sense that the fact that they can be held in the ready to fire position excludes them from being categorized as archery. Mm-hmm. So to me, they need to be categorized. I loved what we had going. I have nothing against crossbows, and I think people think I do. They're great for elderly people. They're great for people with disabilities, shoulder injuries, all that stuff. Use them in the gun season, free, open. But to lump them with such a broad stroke and say that they're archery and put them in the archery category is to me, we're letting, I don't even know what the right word be, we're letting things in that shouldn't be in the sense that what's next? Okay, so now all these people, like these big manufacturers are, like, you can go to Cabela's, dude, and it's hard to find a bow. It's all crossbows. Mm-hmm. Like, why do you think, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And you can sit there and go, okay, crossbows, like, you can look at the numbers and all that stuff. I don't give a shit about the data. I really don't. I'm just looking at this going, and people will say, well, it's a compound. Look at all the gadgets on a compound, blah, blah, blah. You still have to draw it. Like, it still cannot be held in the ready to fire position. And what I mean by the integrity of seasons is you have these seasons where this season was built around a primitive style weapon, in the sense that it's capable of doing this, 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 and this. So when you lump another weapon into that doesn't have this, this, and this, it's benefiting from that season that was structurally built for this specific thing. And I think we can all agree on that crossbows are more, I don't want to say effective, but efficient, and you can pull that benefit also through less practice.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Of course, why wouldn't? Like, I understand the draw to that, absolutely. But where my stance is then that doesn't belong in a season that was structured around this certain thing that can't do these other certain things. And when you're benefiting from being lumped in this long season, I mean, that's ultimately why archery season is so long, is because of the primitive aspect of it. Right. And the difficulties of it. Well, when you get rid of some of those difficulties and you're still in that same season, to me, it opens up the gateway for a lot of other shit that's not going to do archery. And I'm talking about archery, not my personal wants and desires and feelings and emotions.
Right.
Archery itself. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do that thing that we all love any good. And I don't understand it in the sense that we can go, we agree that it is a more efficient weapon, and everybody's saying how down deer numbers are. Deer numbers are super low and everything. Then why are we making it easier? Okay, so your argument is, I mean, who gives a shit if it's legal? Let people do it if it's legal, da-da-da. And then you turn around and bitch that, oh, the deer numbers are terrible and everything sucks and da-da-da. Okay, I understand that. I can understand both of those, totally. But why are we putting them together and saying, okay, let's make this easier?
Yeah.
Because look at bow hunting and deer hunting in general. It's going like this. So why are we keep throwing these things to make it easier? We're just slowly prolonging that. Like, let's start looking at some things and going, okay, like, I mean, honestly, like the whole first half of this conversation was about exactly this, making things not easy.
Yeah.
And getting that fulfillment out of it. And that's why the archery season was longer, because it was tougher. And you went through this whole thing. And, I mean, dude, to get a deer with your bow when I was younger was like, holy shit. Like, it was a thing. Yeah. Now it's if it's not 150 incher with this, and this, you're an idiot.
I'd vote for you.
It's like, you know what I mean, though? Like, it's not. I have nothing against them. I really don't. It's about categorizing things and keeping, like, the integrity within each thing. Like, I do agree, sure, look at compounds and say, look at the sights that they have, the releases, just the mechanics of a bow now. Guys are shooting, 80 plus yards and they're efficient. Do I think that's right? There's probably a line in there that it's not. Yeah. And same thing with muzzleloaders. I mean, a 200-yard muzzleloader is nothing. They got scopes. They got all this technical bullets and all this stuff now. Yep, there's probably a line that's being crossed there too, for sure. And I will totally agree with that. But you still have to load it from the muzzle. Yeah. It's still a muzzleloader. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A compound, you still have to draw it to shoot the projectile. Yeah. It's still the integrity of what it is still what it is. Are you flirting with, like, making this thing, like,
pretty deadly,
like way more like crazy than what it was supposed to be? Yeah, for sure, absolutely. But at the end of the day, as crazy as all this shit is and as much as it helps, it's still this. Yeah. And guys will say, well, then we might as well just use a flintlock and stuff. Well, that's great. You got to load that through the muzzle too for muzzle loader. Yeah. It's a muzzle loader. Mm-hmm. You can't say that with a crossbow. Yeah. And you can. And I again, I'm not shitting on them. I'm not shaming anybody. I'm not anything. I'm just saying the integrity of archery needs, same thing with muzzleloaders and all this stuff. Rifles, it's no different, right? Like, I don't necessarily agree with going out and putting this scope on it and this rangefinder and this app. You click this and you shoot 1,000 yards. Yeah. I think there's a line there too that's being crossed, but it's still a rifle. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, whether I like it or not, it's still a rifle. Yeah. Whether you can shoot 300 yards or 800 yards with it, it's still a rifle. And that's my stance. And people get pretty wild about it. And I think where a lot of the people get really wild about it is when you start screwing with their conveniences.
We'll be right back. Hey everybody, Ricky Bruley here, Vapor Trail. We're really excited about some new features that we've just added to the Gen Integrate X limb driver arrow rest. Previous model that we had the micro adjust knob that stuck out, and so it made it difficult to remove these one-piece low pro quiver from Matthews. We've eliminated that knob, and now it's an Allen key that you would use to make that adjustment. We thinned up the area here where the activation cord is as well. We really squeezed it in about 1/4 of an inch. It's a little bit lower profile, so now you don't have any issues with the low profile quiver. Comes off nice and easy. You also have, of course, the added feature of the integrated mounting system, so you can mount the arrow rest right to the rail on the riser of the bow. Additional features include new markings that differentiate your locking screws from your windage and elevation screws. All Vapor Trail arrow rests have a free-floating head, providing more forgiveness and greater downrange accuracy. No need for a bow press. Simply tie the activation cord to the limb and say goodbye to interference with cam timing caused by cable-driven arrow rests. The new and improved GI8X is available and ready to ship. Trust the originators of limb-driven technology and head over to our website at vaportrailarchery.com or stop into your local archery pro shop to get yours today. So we did talk about this a little bit briefly, and it's kind of a hot button issue. Well, it is for a lot of people.
For sure.
I mean, full disclosure, and I've kind of avoided talking about it on the podcast just because of some of the extremes that I've seen some people go through. Minnesota Archery Talk website was just like, it got nuts.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking like death threats.
Yep.
And it's like, whoa, what is going on here? But the thing is when we were talking about it briefly, I thought, well, this could be a good topic because, well, for one, even if you and I didn't have a similar stance, I know you and I could have a conversation about it.
100%.
And we could go, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yep.
It's not always about agreeing to disagree.
Yep.
And it's not always about trying to make your point.
That's exactly
It's
right.
about talking about what your stance is
Yep.
and why you have that stance. Like have some information to
Yep.
back it up.
Yep.
And then you can go, oh, yeah, I didn't really think about
Yep.
that, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people, like especially some people that are particularly in support of it.
Yep.
And when I kind of explain some of the things that I don't like, I think a lot of people they're instantly going to kind of gravitate towards how it's more efficient and,
Yep.
and all of these things, right? But there's other factors at play. Politics is a big thing that really drives me crazy about the whole situation, and I will get into that as well.
Yeah.
But we, as a Vapor Trail and Stokerized specifically, as a manufacturer in the archery industry, we make accessories for bows. We don't make accessories for crossbows.
Yep.
We make accessories for bows. And sure, we could make accessories for crossbows, I suppose. But now we're getting into the optics arena, bolts arena.
Yep.
Now, granted, crossbows, we do a lot of bowstrings, and crossbows chew up strings like a wood chipper, and so that's good. That is good for us. However, like as a whole, and with us having a pro shop too, guy can come in, buy a crossbow off the shelf, and he can use it for him and his entire family. Whereas with archery,
Yep.
you come in, everybody's got to have their own bow.
Yep.
Everybody's gonna need their own accessories, that kind of thing. So I guess that then a guy might point out and say, well, that's exactly why it should be, because then now they don't have to spend $5,000 on all the equipment that they need for their whole family. And I understand that. I'm not saying that a guy's gonna come in and just buy 5 bows.
Yeah.
But again, accessory sales, all those kinds of things. Absolutely. And so it kind of pigeonholes archery shops into forcing us into selling crossbows, because it's the only way we can really compensate for the loss in sales that are coming from that aren't coming from vertical bows. And so there's that factor where I'm kind of like, well, and at first I was really pretty upset about the whole thing. You know what I mean? I was just like kind of fired up and, having some conversations with people. Me and Hollywood were sitting in here talking about it, and I was just fuming, Yeah. And I think what made me mad the most is I was completely caught off guard by it. All of a sudden one day, Johnny was like, yeah, did you see that the crossbow thing passed? And here I'm over here celebrating the marijuana legalization, right? And then not because I'm a regular user, but again, that's a whole nother story. There's so many things about that I think are good. Maybe there might be it could be argued that there could be some bad things too, but that's another podcast. Perhaps for the High Times podcast or something like that.
Well, banning drinking isn't going to cure less drinking, or you know what I mean?
Right.
It's the same. I look at it the same way with pot. If anybody's using it, they're going to use it.
Yeah, and there's financial benefits and tax benefits and whatever. Getting people who are ridiculously imprisoned for a long period of time because they got caught with a little bit of weed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And now they're in the system, and now they're like on a downward spiral for the rest of their lives simply because they had a little bit, anyways.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but back to crossbows. So I was caught off guard because I was watching on the Minnesota State website the statutes that were in place and the representatives that were supporting it, and I was making posts and I was tagging them in it, so they could see. And again, we're just small potatoes, you know what I mean? Like, we're not the majority, so I don't think it really mattered. But nonetheless, all of a sudden I'm like, what the heck? And I go back to the Minnesota State website, and it still shows that legislation is there's no update to it.
Yep.
Like, oh, there was a meeting here and they talked about this and blah, blah, blah. And then it just all of a sudden just ended. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, what happened?
Yep.
You know, how did this? Mm-hmm. And the only thing I can look at, chalk it up to is, you know, you've got the crossbow lobby, you know, that's obviously highly in support of it because they want their business to grow. They see an opportunity to create a lot of sales, all of that stuff. So I understand that. Like, if I put myself as a CEO of a crossbow company in his position, and I'm trying to grow a company, and I'm going, we can't grow because we have this, you know, we have this thorn in our side as to why we can't really make the sales we want to. So I understand that. However, I don't like the smoke and mirrors behind how it goes through because it's not based on sound science. It's not based on anything other than, in my mind, some cash being put under the table.
I agree.
And maybe I'll get myself in some trouble with this, but there's some voices out there that I was like, why are people not speaking about this? What's the deal?
Yep.
And the only thing that I was able to come up with is the fact that some of these people had been fighting it for a very long time, and eventually they came to the realization that there's no stopping it. Yeah. It's going to happen. Yeah. There's no way around it. And the way that it happened is they strategically waited for a really big vote, which was, you know, the main thing on the docket was the legalization of marijuana in the state of Minnesota. Yeah. And then they stuck it in the packet, and nobody knew what was going on. Yep. And all of a sudden, boom, here we go. Yep. So that is something that really frustrates me because I don't think it's being very transparent. You know, the state claimed that it was highly in support. And somebody can correct me on this because this is only based on what the information that I kind of had at the time. I didn't have a lot of time to really dive deep into it, but they said that they had a majority support of hunters, but really the only thing I saw was that the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association was in support of it. Yeah. And so the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association has, you know, I don't know, 200,000 members across the state. I don't know what that number is, but they were using those numbers to say this is why we should do this. Mm-hmm. And in reality, I would say about half of the people or half of the members that I know from the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association did not agree with it. Yeah. So they're just making this blanket statement and saying that this organization is in full support when a lot of those members didn't even know about it. Yeah. And so, again, there's that. And I'm not trying to hate on the Minnesota Deer Hunters Association. There's a lot of things that they've done in this state to help out. I just don't like how they were kind of used as this scapegoat to get these things to go through. So there's all of that stuff that really frustrates me. And then, again, the length of the hunting season. Yep. That's my biggest concern. Numbers just recently came out. I'm sure you could probably enlighten everybody on what those numbers are, which that's a whole nother topic too. Like like you said, numbers, I don't care about numbers. And I'm with you on that too, because it's all smoke and mirrors to me. You could throw a bunch of percentages up in front of me, and how do I know? How do I even prove that? And you can tell me, well, there's a place you can go, and okay, well, where's the map? Yeah. You know what I mean? Are you going to give me the roadmap to find that information? Because I don't have time to go down this really long rabbit hole to try to find that data. I trust you to provide us with the proper information. Yep. And when you're sliding stuff into legislation like that, I can't trust any of it. And so that's where there's that. And so my biggest concern is the shortening of the length of our archery season now, because, you know, and I think the numbers right now are basically saying the numbers didn't really go up as far as the number of kills. Yep. I think the ratio of bow hunters and crossbows was different naturally. Of course it's going to be. You know, and even just seeing, so what was it that you said? I think it was like 40% of the animals killed with a bow were crossbows. Yeah.
So the total archery harvest this year was almost to the deer the same as last year.
Okay.
And again, I totally agree with you. These are the numbers that we have to trust, and I use trust very loosely.
Yeah.
But these are the numbers that were presented, and it was 43%, just over 43% of the total archery harvest deer were crossbows. Because when you did register them, it gave you the opportunity to say, vertical bow or crossbow. And I'm not even going to get into the term vertical bow. I gag a little bit saying it's just a made-up word.
Yeah.
It's like
well,
all bows are vertical.
Yeah.
I'm
right.
sorry.
Exactly. But again, from a business standpoint, you know what I mean? We use that term simply because it's the best way that we can differentiate
Absolutely. You have to now.
the two for our customers, but
15 years, maybe 20 years ago, whatever, when I was in school and stuff too, like that didn't even exist.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
But for me, a big thing about it too that I don't really care for is like, and it kind of goes back to you and I talking about how I think people have lost how to have a constructive conversation. How you were saying, you and I, if we had differing viewpoints on it, we could have a conversation just the same as if we agreed on it.
Right.
And I'm totally confident in that. And it's hard to bring this to light when a lot of people their conversations are fueled by their emotions. Their emotions get the best of them, and then you get just right to insults, and then it's all these assumptions, and all of a sudden you're against this, you're against that, you're this big tyrant of blah, 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 and all this. And it's like that's not it at all. And I see a lot of people say, and they say something along the lines of, everybody's bitching about it, blah, blah. And I say, well, I mean, as far as I've seen, everybody's been pretty respectful, and people sharing differing viewpoints. I don't think that's bitching at all. I mean, that's the first part of how a solution comes forth. And when people are like, it's just, I hate the fact that I can look at somebody and go, I don't agree with that. This is what I think. And this is why I think that. And you look at me like I'm this monster, and like, how dare you, and this and this and this. And it's like, that's not how these conversations should be going. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that's where I think a lot of this stuff has fallen by the wayside, because a lot of really credible people are just silent. Because if they say anything, or I say anything, or you say anything, like, they know the blowback is just going to be, and it's like, that's where we're at as people. Like, I can't respectfully say, I'm not shitting on anybody, I'm not this is just how I feel about it, without like you just speed bagging my sack, you know what I mean? Like, dude, yeah, it's like, I'm not saying you're this or you're that or you're this. This is how I think of it, and this is how I process it, and this is how I come up with this, and that's that. And it's just sad that we can't do that. And I mean, even this, like, that a guy's got to even be hesitant talking about it. It's like, whatever, dude, man. Like, I'll talk about anything. Whatever. If you want to come for me, I mean, that's your prerogative. If you can't be respectful about it, you're probably not somebody I'm going to invest in and take the time out to do a whole lot of interacting with, anyways.
Yeah, and it was interesting to me. The reason we started talking about this is because you had made mention of the numbers that came out on Wells Outdoor Journal on your Facebook page, and it just, everybody came out of the woodwork, right? Like, and it's to me it's interesting that, I guess, so where I'm trying to go with this is that I was really fired up with it in the beginning, right? And then I kind of started, okay, I get, you have to just accept it, right? What do you do? It's happening. It's happening. So let's see what happens, and maybe it won't be as bad as it seems, right? And so, and I can't speak to that personally because I didn't spend a lot of time in the woods, but I know there was a lot of people that were like, oh, I hunt public land. There's going to be so many inexperienced, new hunters to the game that are going to go down to Fleet Farm and buy a $300 bow. And it was like, it's like there was just going to be an army of them everywhere, and I had some people report to me that they didn't really see an influx of individuals in the woods. And again, I can understand the concern. I can see where but again, what do we do? This is where we're at. Like, we needed to make steps before this passed. And it didn't really happen. So, you know, I think that it's going to be, I guess it's going to be interesting to just kind of see how it continues to progress. You know what I mean? Because if the DNR is saying the numbers are the same, and we had 6% increase in sales. I don't know what the metric is that they're looking for.
Yep.
You know, if you look back at case studies from other states like Wisconsin, again, there wasn't like a huge significant increase in archery sales. Yep. I do agree with the fact that, you know, we want to try to do some things to get new hunters involved. All of those kinds of things. You know, we need to have hunting as a you know, we need to support the Pittman-Robertson Act, and the only way that we can do that is by having more hunters and by, you know, buying archery equipment and buying I don't know what other, I think like some camping gear, and there's other things that kind of pay into the Pittman-Robertson Act that helps support conservation and gives us the opportunities that we have on all this public land. You know, it's just I just fear, like you said, when you talk about that number going down.
Yep.
And then what kind of helped me change my tune just a little bit is in having conversations with some of the leaders of some of these nonprofit organizations. And I've seen it myself too. I've been a part of, you know, Safari Club International. We used to have a bow hunting chapter, North Country Bow Hunters, and it doesn't exist anymore. It's been disbanded. You know, that stuff is starting to kind of take a downfall. And when I talk to some of these leaders, there's a common theme, and it's that we're no longer really doing this to help grow it. We're just barely keeping our heads above water. Like if we didn't have this, like you said, that, you know, you give them a foot, take it a mile. So all of these dollars that are getting poured into these nonprofit organizations is just enough to keep what we have, but it's slowly slipping away through legislation like that, where it's, to me, it's a money grab. Like when you say, why are we doing this? Like why deer numbers go down, but why are we making it easier? I'll tell you why, or at least I'll tell you my opinion, and it's because somebody wants more money.
Absolutely.
In a different, you know what I mean? Like I get it. You worked your ass off and you got yourself to a level where you built a brand and you built a company and you did it. And but you know, the rest of those companies that got there the right way, now they're suffering because you had more power in some way, shape, or form.
Kind of something I always said was, you can't make new money off old products. You know, it's like, this thing's tried and true, it works great, but we're going to redo it and put this over here and do this and that, and then we're going to do that, and then the next year we'll kind of move this and that. And it's like, I get it, that's marketing. And the 6%, and I honestly don't think that it's going to have a catastrophic change as far as deer numbers being killed and all that stuff. I really don't believe that. I don't believe it is. And the 6% increase could be, that could just be to youth, because now, you know, a lot more kids are shooting. And again, that's not my standpoint. My standpoint is, again, like, we're just making segues to like these big manufacturers to push this crummy shit through legislation and add it as pork onto these big bills and add more stuff in there. More, you know, when we said it earlier, what was that? They have that it's called the air bow or something. You know, you drop an arrow down a air rifle now, and that so who's to say that in 5 years that's not going to get pushed onto this, and that's not going to push down, and it's like, I mean, at some point, right, there's got to be a breaking point, right? I mean, you could say that with anything. Fishing, you know, live scope. Look what's happening in the fishing space with live scope. People, it's kind of the crossbows of fishing, you know, and it's like, at what point things are just going to keep better and improving, and technology is better and better and better. And if you think deer numbers are going to go up and these experiences are going to get better, you're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. Look at it. And we're desperately throwing stuff on it. And I totally understand that standpoint of like, we're just trying to hold on to what we got. But in the same time, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. If we're playing the long game, we're shooting ourselves in the foot with that stuff, because we're making it easier and we're killing deer. I spent some time with a rancher out in South Dakota, and he said, dude, I grew up here. Like, mule deer everywhere. You can barely even find a 3.5-year-old buck now. And he's on the ranch running cattle all the time. He's like, and literally, this is what he said, and his son said the same thing. there's so many guys out here now with these bows that are shooting 60, 80 yards. These deer don't stand a chance out here. And that was a part of the push to make South Dakota a lottery, go into a lottery system versus over the counter. And so you look at like, you know, the effect of ever evolving gear and how much more efficient it is in these things. And it's like, and I'm not saying in any way they're wrong. I like I said earlier, I do believe that there is some kind of line that we are crossing with all this stuff. And I'm not saying I don't use it.
Yeah.
But I'm absolutely saying like there is somewhere there's a breaking point with all this stuff, and it's like we keep adding this stuff in, and now we can, you know, if we're putting crossbows into this space and now we're going to be putting, you know, arrows down shotgun barrels, and who like that sounds ridiculous and we laugh, but it's already being made.
Yeah.
It's already being made, and it's like, and I'm talking long game here, dude. Like you guys, I don't know, but like little kids, I don't have any kids. My brother's got little kids. There's a lot of little kids that I hope have the same opportunity that I did that aren't going to get it. What's it going to be like for them in 30 years?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what is it going to be like? And then people say, oh, let's just make a crossbow season. I don't agree with that either. So someone says, I got a grenade. Let's make a grenade season. I mean, it's ridiculous,
Yeah.
but right, you know?
Yeah.
Where does it end? And that's kind of part of the integrity of what I'm talking about is
Yeah.
it's like once we start saying, you know what, like who cares if this is legal and it's a little more efficient and who cares? Well, you know what? I guess I care at least. And you can call me, oh, you're a dick and you're lumping people into this thing and you're shaming them. That is not at all. And if that's the intent you're taking from me,
Yeah.
then we're just two totally different people. And I am, like we said earlier, I am not for everybody, and I'm totally okay with that. I am. This is in no way meant to cast any shadows on anybody.
Right. Right.
It's me sticking up for what I love, and that's archery and bow hunting. And I just think if we keep letting the stuff, and it gets a little easier and a little easier, and we're trying to elevate these numbers and keep these numbers up while our deer and habitat are doing this. Where is that going to leave us?
Yeah.
Where we're at now.
It's interesting you talk about the future, because that's my biggest concern, is where are we going to be at, you know, at a certain point, you know, and I could go on and talk about all kinds of conspiracies that are in my head that I'm probably better that I don't even repeat. But I do think that there is something to just this autonomous society, this autonomous nature of how we function, and like really turning ourselves into numbers that all we're doing is just, you know, I mean, it's already happening now, like the rat race. Yep. We're all in it. We're working. Yep. That's why go to high school, get your diploma, go to college so that you can get a good degree. Yep. And then, oh, you want to be a doctor? Okay, why don't you rack up $150,000 in school loans, and then it takes you half of your career to pay it off. Yep. And all you're doing is just working to pay off that degree. And now it's like, so that you can pay taxes, so that we can pay this ridiculous debt that we have. You know what I mean? How are we going to pay the debt? Oh, I know what we can do. Let's create this institution that people have to pay for, and then you know. So again, so my fear is, because that is a thing. That's what we're doing right now. Yep. That's what's happening, and we can't fight it. The national debt just keeps going up. But now we're getting into a dangerous place where we have fake meat, and we have and the deer numbers are declining, and it's like, so now you know, and again, I don't know if this is all true, but there's some states where you can't collect your own water. Like you can't collect water from your
rainwater.
Why is that? I want to use that rainwater to like my garden. Can't do it. What? Really? And then, you know, so at what point is all this going to kind of implode, right? Where now we can't provide for ourselves. We can't hunt our own food. We can't, this is all we have left of any sort of primitive society or of fending for ourselves. And if we can't do that, we are just,
they want you to rely on the government.
Thank you. You can't do the things you want to do anymore. So this so-called freedom we have is no longer free. Yeah. It's just made to look like it is. Anyway, so
no, it's
that's what scares me.
Yep.
That kind of stuff.
It's wild, and I tell people and say like legitimately, tell me something that was better 10 years ago, like in the outdoor space, we'll say. Mm-hmm. Other than maybe a few pockets of elk, I don't really. I can look at fishing and go, fishing sucks compared to it used to 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. 10 years ago, this hunting thing and traveling and doing what I'm doing now, 10 years ago was way better.
Yeah.
Getting tags and the amount of animals. So this is, I think this will be my 8th voyage this year. And I kind of softly did one. So you could say it's 9. The very first one where I dabbled outshined all of these by far. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was stumbling through it, trying to learn, kind of the second lease on life type of thing. And I'm doing something different. And it was like, it has just drastically gone to shit in the last 6-7 years. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. Again, I feel like a douche saying I just shot 10 animals, blah, blah, blah. But literally I've, mm-hmm. devoted my life to it.
You're seeing it changes. I mean, you have a better opinion than probably most because of the time spent in the field. So you have a credible opinion.
And that's why maybe that's why I'm more scared than a lot of people are, is because I see how fast it's going away. And it's like, again, just staying in our home state, it's like how fast it's deteriorating. It's going down, and we keep throwing this stuff on it. And legitimately, like long game stuff, I'm looking at this going, right now we have more habitat and more people than what we'll ever have. So tomorrow there'll be more people. And obviously there'll be less people too, because people come and go. Mm-hmm. But everything's going up. Urban sprawl is growing up. So we have less habitat and all this. It's constantly mm-hmm. going like this. Yeah. Where does that leave us? And we're all saying, oh, deer numbers are going down. Well, maybe we should take a step back. A lot of this stuff. I mean, turkeys across the country are just dive bombing. It's terrible. All these states, Missouri's been struggling with it for a long time. Nebraska's gone. A lot of these states, just within the last handful of years, have drastically decrease the availability in turkey tags in the spring. Mm-hmm. Populations are going on. Nobody knows why. What's going on? Well, I can tell you where a good start is. That's when things were great and there was a lot of turkeys. We hammered the shit out of them. And then we sit back and go, where'd they all go?
What happened?
Where did they all go? Mm-hmm. Little too late, mm-hmm. little too much too late, or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, now we're sitting there going, okay, this is where we're at. Like you said, this is where we're at. This is where we're at. And it's from a whole bunch of different things that got us here. But now we're sitting here where it's at. And we're trying to, our minds are in the glory days, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants change. There's no deer. We need this and we need that and all this stuff. But as soon as inconvenience is at your foot, it's time for you to sacrifice some shit to get this change that you really want. Mm-hmm. No, that's bullshit. Well, take it from him.
Yeah.
Take it from him. No, take it from him. Mm-hmm. But don't mess with mine, because that's bullcrap. Well, at some point, somebody has to go, okay, you know what? We have to make some sacrifice here, but we keep coming up with ways to not offend you in the sense that it's not fair if you got to sacrifice. Well, and then you got to, and we're trying to keep our head above water when sometimes maybe we should just get the fuck out of the water.
Yeah.
And let it be a little bit, and kind of get back to some of this more, I want to say primal stuff, or mm-hmm. maybe go back to where things were a little bit more simplified and say, you got one deer tag and you get to pick one weekend. Yeah. Like it used to be. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Instead of now the season is forever long. Mm-hmm. You can archery hunt and go right into gun hunting and go right into muzzleloader hunting and go right into bow hunting the rest of the year. And I mean, there's spots in the state where you can shoot 5, how many ever deer. Yeah. And it's like, okay, then if we can look at this and you say, you know what, this sucks. I wish hunting was better. Okay, if that means you can't shoot every deer you see, that means the only deer that you're going to get to shoot is a bigger buck. That's the buck that you need to shoot, and all the other deer you need to let go.
Yeah.
F that, and, and all this. And it's like, well, that's what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not willing to do that. But when it all comes down to it, and it's like, oh, you have no problem going, well, this needs to happen, that needs to happen. At the end of the day, dude, we're going to have to just make some sacrifices. Yeah. Somebody's going to have to swoop in here and go, it's either this or this shit's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You pick, and we're not picking. We're picking short game right now.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a weird thing. And before I forget, I want to say this, just because I don't know if anybody's even going to hear this or comment about it, but some people might be asking themselves, because I got into this whole conspiracy theory stuff, and they're probably going, well, what does the crossbow legislation have to do with any of what I'm talking about, us losing our ability to hunt altogether? And what worries me, and this is why I kind of changed my tune a little bit on it, is because I'm seeing all of this division within the hunting community. Mm-hmm. And we really need to stop and look at, like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you've seen that or heard about, the original reason for, like, the Roman games back in the Roman days. It was to distract the people. Mm-hmm. And so I think about that kind of stuff too, where this is creating this big distraction where people aren't really focusing on what's the real problem, what's going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing because we're too busy worrying about whether this guy is shaming us because we like to use a crossbow. Yeah. It's not about it. We have to figure out a way to get along somehow. You know what I mean? Some way. Yeah. I can disagree with being able to use a crossbow during the season, during the full archery season, all day long, and we can still all be friends. But the ultimate thing that we're missing is that people are at each other's throats, and we need to come to some sort of agreement on the fact that our opportunities are declining. And it's not going to matter if you have a crossbow or you have a gun or you have a bow or you have a spear or a golf club. Yeah. Those opportunities may not exist at all. So that's where I kind of started to change my tune a little bit, where I'm like, okay, but how do you do that? How do you figure out a way for everybody to kind of get along? Because it doesn't change my opinion. Yeah. I'm not just going to all of a sudden go, well, I'm in support of that simply because we all got to get along. I just think we just have to, I think there just needs to be an awareness.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that, I guess that's kind of why I'm talking about it is, and I think we're not going to reach the masses at the Range podcast here, but I shouldn't say that. I got to manifest that better. Maybe we will.
Yeah, that's right.
But the point is it's just, we got to figure something out because that's my biggest fear, is that my daughter won't have these opportunities.
And that's where, to me, I've always said, I'm not so much worried about the non-hunting and the anti-hunting community. It's, why are we so afraid of trying to protect it from the outside when we can't do it from the inside?
Right.
And the problem with that I see, like, if I'm a fly on the wall and I'm looking down on this thing, the problem to me is the take mentality. Mm-hmm. No one's willing to take accountability and go, you know what? There's not a lot of deer here, so I'm not going to shoot a deer. I'll go find a different area. Instead of having this chip on my shoulder and feeling like I got to just blame somebody else and blame something else. I'm not saying you're the cause. You need to take all the blame for this. But as a person that holds a contract, which the contract is the license, you have accountability in this. And for example, I always hear guys say, like, well, I shot the only 2 deer I saw this season. Fuck. Take a second and think about that. Yeah. What do you think that what do you get from that year after year after year after year? You shot the only 2 deer you saw. You're probably not ever going to have a year where you see a bunch of deer, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. Like, so maybe talk with your neighbors, do whatever the heck it is. Mm-hmm. The only thing you have control over is yourself. So if everybody said that and said, I only have control over myself, I'm not satisfied with this area, I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to do something to improve this area, and I'm going to put restrictions and say, I'm only going to shoot this one particular kind of deer. You know, it's the DNR says, oh, you get 3 tags in your area. Oh, freaking awesome! It's going to be an awesome year. And then here comes January, and you're bitching you didn't see any deer because you just for all these years you shoot buying every tag you can. Buy 1 tag. Tell your whole party we're buying 1 tag. This is the deer we're shooting. And I'm not saying it does suck that it's come to that, and that's what you have to do. But I think to some point, every property that has good hunting has some type of thing like that on it. Fishing has slots, for God's sakes. We can only keep certain fish. And people bitch and complain about that. You know, and again, I'm going to get pounded in the sack for saying this. You can only keep 1 fish on Mille Lacs. Dude, there's over 12,000 other lakes. It's one of the best fisheries in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you can't go home and throw one in the fryer like F the world. And I understand it sucks. It sucks. Dude, I love fish. I wish I could go there and go home with a limit of fish. But that's part of the reason that got us into this mess with a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Take. They're going to start lowering. I guarantee you, hopefully they start lowering limits on panfish in Minnesota. Like it's insane, the stuff. Like, but all this stuff is collectively slowly going away because we just want to take. We just want to take. We want to take. Nobody wants to sit back and go, you know what? I guess I do have a role in this. I do play a role in this, and I can control my role. So I'm going to take some accountability, and I'm going to go, you know what? I know the limit is 10 fish. I'll keep 5.
Yeah.
It's not quite like it used to be. I'll keep 5.
Yeah.
You know, I'm seeing a less deer in this spot, whatever. I'm going to talk to my uncle that I hunt with, whatever, and we'll go over things and say, hey, let's just shoot 1 doe this year. You know what I mean? Like there are things that we can do. And I don't understand, like a lot of the times people will say, you know, F the DNR and this, and they need to tell me, you know, yeah, they are the ones who set the things and tell us what we can and can't do as far as like how many deer we can shoot. But I don't understand. People are like, F the government. They can't tell me what to do. But yet on the same token, they wait for them to swoop in and tell you what to do to fix it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you need to police your own shit a little bit is what I'm trying to say. And if we don't start doing that, because the government and the DNR and all that shit sure obviously isn't doing it. Right? So at some point we need to take some accountability, you know, take an outward step and an inward look and go, you know, I do play a role in this and there is something I can do about it. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, when it's time to hang my hat up, I can say I did the thing that I could do, and that's the control that I had over myself. And I made some sacrifices for it to be better. And then the person says, yeah, well, if I don't shoot that deer, my neighbor's going to. That just means you are that neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. I mean, again, that's
long game. I'm talking long game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your kids,
yeah.
Long game.
Yeah, you're right. And I, again, certain people in the hunting community. Well, one, I think there are people out there that are like that, right? That are like, okay, I only saw, you know, I would normally on a hike up in, you know, northern Minnesota, I would see like, you know, 10 or 15 grouse, and you know, this year, gosh, I only saw like 2. So they're going to be a little bit more careful about what they do. And there are those people, just not near enough. And there's more of the people that go, you know, again, I could go, well, this crossbow thing really makes me mad, so I'm gonna go outside of it. If that's what they want to do, then I'm just gonna do things my way, and this is how I'm gonna do it. And then I'm gonna piss off every anti and every animal rights activists in the process. And it's like, again, with us having to come together, why are we doing that?
Yep.
Why are we making us as a hunting community look like that? Yep. You know, what was the term that you used? Shoot, shovel, and shut up.
Yeah.
Like that just pisses me off.
It's asinine.
Because, you know, again, if you live on a farm, cattle farm or something like that, you got wolves taking out your cattle, what you do is your business. Yep. You know what I mean? I have no control over that. Yep. Right? But again, you're not helping the cause.
No.
By just outright coming out and saying stuff like that, and then at the same time being completely insensitive to the very people that we're trying to convince that this is all like good stuff that we're doing, because it's based on science and it's based on what a professional opinion.
Exactly.
As far as what we can do to ensure that we can continue to do this, and we can all the animals can coexist. This isn't a new concept.
Yep.
They did this long before. The only factor that's in play now is humans.
Yep.
Yep. And so we have to we just have to figure that out and quit being idiots about just being too aggressive about the things that we're saying.
People don't realize, you think and I catch myself, it's just stupid little Facebook. It's not. Social media is now. It's the digital world. Whether you like it or not, it is a big part of our existence right now. And these groups, you start a Facebook group and all this stuff and everybody's chirping on it and all this stuff. If you're not moderating that, in a point to where it's your responsibility to keep this where it needs to be, and you're letting things slide, dude, you are causing so much more harm than you are good. And I told you earlier, I'm speaking from experience. There was a bear hunting group, and they were talking about wolves and the correlation with baiting, and I had a picture of, I don't know what it was, 7 wolves on a bait, and an anti-hunting pro-wolf group used my picture, used my name and my quote, and put me in one of their videos that they made, this big deal, and they used it as one of their promotional pieces for to get rid of and do away with bear baiting. And I make my living killing bears, and now I'm on this video,
supporting their
yeah,
cause, or
they're using me to support their cause. They're saying, look at this dumbass. Look at the stuff he's saying, and saying that wolves should be managed, and look at how many are on bear baits and blah, blah. And then it was a whole thing about how wolves were becoming so dependent on bear baits as a food source, and, we should eliminate bear baiting and all this stuff. And, and again, there wasn't a whole lot, because I don't have the resources to legally fight that. And they basically told me to pound sand about it when I contacted them.
Oh my gosh.
But it's if you don't realize, and I've had multiple different things through just Facebook happen through when I owned my own business and other hunting things, it's amazing who's watching this stuff. And these guys that say this stuff, this malicious stuff, and I know we jumped on the wolf thing, and it's again, guys misinterpret where I'm coming from with this, and they think I'm this anti-wolf hunting, and I want a season more than anybody. It is totally wrong the way they jump on the assumptions. Where I'm going is that the message we're sending, if you have a post where half the people are posting pictures of coyotes, like I said, these people are documenting this stuff, and they're going through all this stuff and all these comments, and they're saying, look, half the people don't know half of it's coyotes that they're posting. So if you're in a court setting or some type of thing, and you're trying to push something through, and you're saying, look, half these people don't even know what a wolf is. They're posting coyotes saying they're wolves, and the other half are saying shoot them in the guts, poison them, all this stuff. That is exactly stepping us backwards. It does absolutely nothing for the case, and it's that's where it's getting misconstrued, where I step in and say some of these things, and it's dude, I promise you, dude, I am on the same team as you. It's just what you're doing and what you're going about it is you're just furthering our black eye in this deal. I'm speaking from experience. There, in a lot of these groups, half of their members are from the anti-community. You can't vet that out.
Right.
And they're in there, and they're just taking pictures, they're screenshotting stuff. It's insane. And people laugh when I say that, but it's 100% going on.
Oh yeah.
And you think that you're going to go in there and somehow you're a grown ass adult and you're saying some of this, even if that's really truly how you feel. And I get it. I get how frustrating it is. But doing that and going that route is just mind boggling to me. It's a real deal, dude. We gotta, and I'm not saying you gotta act a certain way or whatever. There's a respectful way to present things.
Yeah.
And, saying, shoot things and promoting poaching. All they got to do is go look at these freaking hillbillies. They're promoting poaching.
Yeah.
They're promoting poaching. Who knows how many of these wolves have been killed from these moron goons, That makes us look like shit. And here's another thing that I can't stand, that's probably different than a lot of people that people post on the internet, is when they do find poaching stuff. They find a ditch full of uncleaned geese that someone just chucked, or they find a carcass pile of deer or something, or big piles of stuff and whatnot and all this stuff. And I always tell people, why are you, like, all you're doing is giving them publicity. You're furthering our black eye.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to look at that to know that that's wrong.
Right.
Call the DNR, call the police, you turn them in, you make it a report, and don't give it publicity. We don't need other hunters posting like, look at this poacher did, look what this other hunter did, look what this hunter did. They're not hunters.
Yeah.
They're shitbags.
Mm-hmm.
And all you're doing is giving it publicity, saying, hey, look, we're shitbags.
Yeah.
Turn it in. Don't give it any publicity.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't post that shit, man. Don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's oh, sorry, buddy.
But I don't know. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's all tricky.
Man, we could, again, just continue to go down this whole thing. And I'm curious to hear what some people have to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
If anybody, wants to have a discussion about it, happy to. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can comment on either, my page or perhaps the Wells Outdoor Journal.
Yep.
I'm curious. I like to hear all perspectives because you may not hear all the perspectives, but again, I just wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about it because, and kind of the evolution of how my mind has changed. And part of, I think one of the big problems is like, sure, I was fired up about it and I could have gone out there and just like, just started, keyboard warrioring
but then you're
everybody.
acting emotionally,
Yeah, and then in retrospect, I would look back and go, "Oh man," because my perspective has changed a little bit on it. To a degree, it's not. It's just that I'm trying to be just a little bit more open to it because I'm trying to, again, like you said, look at the long game and see does this really matter? Because it does, but in the grand scheme of things, where are we headed and where do we really need to focus our attention on?
100%.
And again, you're still entitled to your opinion, and you'd probably be better off using that energy to figure out how we can preserve what we have as opposed to trying to figure out how you're going to chew out this guy online because they don't agree with you. So that's kind of my hope, is just to I guess educate some people on maybe some things they don't know. I think I talked a little bit about the Pittman-Robertson Act, and it's funny, I talked to a lot of people about that don't even know what it is. I didn't know what it was until I started working for a manufacturer. And really so there's certain products that are allocated where you have to pay 11%. There's an 11% federal excise tax on all sales of that product. And that money goes into a pool that has to be used for certain things.
Sure.
And that's a federal tax. So it's used federally. And a lot of that money goes into, conservation and goes into, having all these wild places that we have the opportunity to explore. Yeah. And so that's a long game. That's something that we've had for a very long time. And it's part of the reason why we stand out over any other country in the world for having the opportunities that we do. Yeah. And I fear again that's going to go away. So, but yeah, man, thanks, dude, for this. This is a great conversation, and
still here.
We're definitely going to do it again. It's a good thing your lady's on vacation. I was going to ask you. I was like, man, you got to go, and then I thought, oh yeah, you're solo this week, man. So you do you, but maybe you got some work that you're just sitting there going, gosh, I really should be working on this project. But
we'll probably do it anyway when I get home. So.
Well, thanks for sticking it out and
it's been a blast.
Dealing with our rant.
Like your guys' perspectives, I see stuff on social media and I kind of just don't really know what to think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like hearing it in person from both you guys, now I have a way stronger, type of viewpoint. And then also a lot of valuable information that I didn't know before, even with the crossbow thing, right? Hearing that.
And that's kind of what I hope, if anything, the podcast is a good platform for us to communicate and talk and reconnect and do all those kinds of things for sure. But I mean, gosh, even if I can educate one person, or if I can, if I can get educated by somebody out there who's like, well, you weren't really very concise about what you said there. And again, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. And so I'm always here to learn and, but anyways, so yeah, again, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. This thing is beautiful. I might, I don't know. I might have to have my wife sleep on the couch tonight so I can lay next to it. But I'm going to probably cut that part out because that'll put me on the couch. But all in jest, of course. But yeah, this is absolutely beautiful. I'm just
Glad you like it, dude.
Blown away. And great job. So if anybody's looking for something like that, definitely look up Josh, and I'm sure he'll be happy to get you going on
Absolutely.
that. And yeah, so where can people find you out there on the social media channels if they're looking for you?
Mainly, most of my dynamic is built around Facebook. I used to do a lot of YouTube stuff, but I would say Facebook on the Wells Outdoor Journal is the main base of the platform.
Perfect.
And then I have my own personal account, Joshua John, and stuff like that. But you can trace that through the journal and stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Damon?
Damon Wolf on Instagram, and then All for One and All for One Creative on Instagram, and Project Hunt. So. Yeah, I'm probably going to be in your DMs if I end up harvesting a bird with the longbow. My first longbow bird, I want it done by you since this conversation was so meaningful.
If any questions or whatever, just through the process, man. I love being a part of it.
Yeah, I'll tag you with my kill pick if I get one.
I love it.
I'm not jinxing it, but if it does happen, you'll find out.
You'll do it, dude. You'll get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so if you want to, you can look us up on the Range Podcast on Instagram and on Facebook. Also, you can find this episode on our YouTube Vapor Trail channel. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, and give us a thumbs up so that you can be up to date on all things archery. And with that, we're going to pack up our bows and we're hitting the range. Have a great day, everybody.
See you later.
Peace.
Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.